Hi everybody, welcome to another episode of Cloud Conversations with me, Peter Rising, and my wonderful co-host Kat Beedham, who is joining me today. And we are
Ooh.
super delighted to welcome a guest to the show. Joining us from my neck of the woods, the northeast of England, is Katie McMillan. Katie, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you, Peter. Really, really good. It's really good to be here. It's in this very, very cold Tuesday as it is, but it's good to be here.
Amazing. No, thank you for taking the time to join us. It's been a long time coming. We've been trying to organize this for a while. So it's good to have you finally with us on the show. So, for the benefit of our viewers and listeners, would you mind doing a short intro to yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, your career journey to date, and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Katie McMillan. I'm an information security professional. I've been working in security for, I want to say, 7 years now, and in technology and IT for probably approaching 12 years now. So I kind of got to started off in a help desk and worked my way through uh, as worked my way up and into management positions in infrastructure. So I have an infrastructure background and in infrastructure management. And I decided that I saw an awful lot of different gaps in the security within my infrastructure role, and thought, do you know what, I'd like to plug those and try and make things a little bit more secure and a little bit better for people. And so I got the security bug, and an ex-colleague of mine had poached me over to a company, a little consultancy up in the northeast, and I worked with them and became a PCI DSS QSA, working on PCI assessments and working on ISO 27001, that sort of thing. So I'm very much a GRC person, and worked my way into more consultancy background, working with blue light organisations, local government, and I've very recently in January started working for Avanade. So I'm a tech advisory manager at Avanade, focused on security advisory. So it's very focused on the GRC side of things, but also looked at sort of deep diving into more technical realms these days, which is nice to get my technical background in there and enjoy some more of that technical rather than just basing on the governance, risk and compliance areas. So yes, so that's me really.
Amazing. We've got a few of the community members who've hopped over to Avanade as well. So that's interesting. A few of them in there. How's your first few months going?
Do you know what? It's been really lovely. Everybody is so welcoming and so friendly. I got to start with some really great people as well. Fantastic. I believe members of the community as well who are really skilled and so much knowledge that I started with. So many people that have so much to offer. The best thing about the organisation is it's very people focused. So it means that there's a big, strong emphasis on networking and sort of getting to know the people you're working with, and working remotely and getting to know those people is really, it can be quite difficult because they have that ethos. It does push people to actually get to know the people in different teams in different areas, to build your own network within the organisation. And I like that a lot. It's being that there aren't a lot of people in the northeast who work for Avanade, so it is in comparison to other areas of the country. So having that network around the country is really, really important to me, and I love to do things like this and have a good chat with people and see what other people are working on and see how I can help them as well, which is always good.
Amazing. Yeah, I think it's hard joining remotely. So I've just joined at CPS, which is with Peter. Point the other way. And it is joining in a remote setting. So you have I went on the first day, but everybody has just been over Teams calls, and it's such a different feeling from being into the office than joining remotely. So interested trying to find that balance. So I feel you. I absolutely feel learning all the new processes and everything. Just home in my office. So yeah, it's an interesting
It's
one.
strange. It is. I had when I started my last organisation, I worked for Agilicis previously to Avanade, and I when I started there, it was at the start of the first lockdown, and going through my full induction. I'd never met anyone. I didn't meet anyone in the team for about 18 months.
Oh goodness.
And
Wow.
everybody in their little offices in the house, where everyone's just learning how to use the new way of working, the remote working. It was quite bizarre, but also fantastic because it was a whole new security team. So everybody was in the same position, everyone was new, and we were all figuring it out together. And I thought, I did find, although the induction process was different, it was also enjoyable because it was different, and getting to bring the new ways of working into to sort of a security function, having had the experience of being an auditor and going out to different sites and having to sit with people over desks and discuss their assessments with them. Doing things remotely was a bit of a fresh change for me. I quite enjoyed it. It will be. It's nice now to be able to go and meet people in person, though. It is.
Mm,
I've missed that too, being able to just sit down and have a cup of coffee with somebody, because sometimes I get more done that way, and it's nice to have the option. Whereas before, obviously, we didn't have that option, locked
mm.
in our little box rooms in our homes a lot of the time.
Yeah, I feel like we're slowly getting back to a balance where in COVID we were obviously all working from home for a very long time, and then after restrictions lifted, we sort of continued that for the most part, but slowly but surely I think it's evening itself out a little bit as well. I mean, and I tend to prefer working from home. If anything, I like my travel to be the exception rather than the rule. But I must admit it's nice to get out and about on those occasions, get into offices and share experience and see people in person. But it was at Agilicis though, wasn't it, where you met Zoe, wasn't it? Zoe Wilson, who I know is a big
It
friend of
was.
yours and big advocate of yours. So and she's now also at Avanade, isn't she? So.
This is true, yeah. So it was a strange coincidence because Zoe and I got to know each other through the Women's Empowerment Network as well at
Mm,
Agilicis. So we did a lot of discussions around sort of building the female presence in the business, and
mm,
sort of promoting people into to different awards, different Women in Tech awards. It was
mm.
actually Zoe that nominated me for the TechWomen100, which I won
Ooh,
back in 2021. So
Awesome.
yeah,
very awesome.
fantastic, and it really lovely of her to nominate me, which was really quite a nice surprise it was.
Mm.
And so when she left a little bit earlier than me from Agilicis, and although Zoe was already working there, I didn't actually tell her I'd applied until after I'd done it.
Ah,
So it was just I thought, you know what, I'm going to pop this application in and then tell her I've done it. So that's what I did. And yeah, it's fantastic to have like-minded people
mm,
at Avanade as well. So the likes of Zoe being there and being an advocate of um, everybody who wants to push themselves forward into new and exciting arenas. I can absolutely say that Zoe's that person. She just
mm.
is the advocate of the people who want to push themselves forward, and it's fantastic to have her in my corner, which is really lovely.
Mm.
Um,
We should tag her
but
when we post this episode so she knows we've been talking
she'll love
about
it. Yeah,
her.
Oh, definitely. She's super
yeah, she'll like
motivating. Whenever you see her in person or otherwise, she instantly just makes you feel motivated and happy and
Mm.
focused. She's just such a lovely person. So hey Zoe, if you're watching.
I
that.
did want to ask actually, picking up on you mentioned the Women in Tech Awards, which is amazing, and kind of trying to they've done a lot of work with women in tech, and from your experience, obviously you start off with the help desk, worked in infrastructure. What's your experience like been in your career as a woman in tech? And
Mm,
for those, a second part to that question, which I think is so useful to hear from women in tech, is how what would your tips be for rising in the ranks of that type of role? How did you go from help desk? What worked for you, if anything?
Yeah, great.
Having
It's
advice.
absolutely. So from a women in tech perspective, my career, although I started on the help desk in technology, I didn't actually start to work in technology until I think I was 27 when I started to actually get out there and work in tech. And that was simply because it wasn't something that I ever thought was for me, and it wasn't. I think that in the school ages and university and the like, it does feel that there's still very much gender stereotypes out there, and not so much these days. We've definitely come an awful long way, and there's still a long way to go. But I do find that when I was working in different organisations, there's a misconception that certain jobs only men can do, and that was still very much there in the organisations I was working in. What I found worked for me was that I worked out where I wanted to go, and I started to spend time, lunch times and after work, pushing myself and getting myself working with the different teams that I was working with, that I ended up working with. Sorry, I'd train myself, I'd push myself forward, spend evenings sitting on my laptop teaching myself how to be a sysadmin, basically. And although I didn't know everything, the manager who ended up promoting me saw my worth and gave me a chance. He said he hadn't seen anybody push themselves that far for a very long time, and I may not have been I might not have been the person who knew the most about the system that I was going in for the job for, but I did have that drive and that attitude and the correct attitude, that I wanted to go places, I wanted to move myself forward, and that's how I've ended up with every role that I've got since then. Is that you've got to be willing to try. I think there's an element of, you look at job description. There's I think it's quite well known that sometimes that when men read job descriptions and see that there are things that they can't do, they go, oh, I'm going to put my job in my application in anyway.
Guilty.
If a woman looks at that, yeah, there we go. A woman looks at that and they say, oh, I can't do half of that. Oh, I'm not going to bother because I'm never going to get the job.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's happened to me a lot. And looking at some of the stuff on some of the job applications and the requirements, I was like, they've worded this in a weird way, but I think that's what I do type of thing as well. So like the language is there. But honestly, there was a role that was kind of there, that somebody reached out to me basically to join, and the role was kind of absolutely suited. Yes, great, we'd love you to come in and interview. And when I read the job spec, I was like, I wouldn't have gone for this, because I would have thought, oh no, I can't do that, oh my goodness. But I did end up, and then I got the role. But that was the job spec, and so I absolutely hear you 100% on that.
Yeah, I find it from a security perspective as well. I found that I was a server and storage manager when I went to work for in security, and not knowing. When a colleague of mine approached me and said, well, "Why don't you come and work with us?" I did say initially, "Well, I don't have security experience," and she went, "But you deal day to day with access control. You deal with patching. You deal with vulnerabilities. You deal with big upgrades. You're constantly dealing with security. You just don't know that it is security." And I think that was such a big point that I clicked and thought, oh, do you know what? I actually do, and I do that quite regularly. I write policy and process as well for different areas within the organisation. So I was doing it anyway. I just didn't realise. So when I did end up making that jump, it wasn't as difficult as I thought it was going to be, and I built it up in my head and not realising, actually, no, I'm okay. I can do this. And I find that as I mentor junior women in tech as well, so I do that with read recruitment for their Women in Tech mentoring. And I've mentored some absolutely fantastic women. They're brilliant, so switched on, much more intelligent than I could ever hope to be, but have no confidence in their own ability because they've built things up to be much more complicated than they are. And I feel we do that as women.
That's it. You've nailed it. You've honestly nailed it on the head. We make things a lot more complicated than they are. If I'm reading something that like that job spec, so there's a line in there, and I think, God, that sounds. But actually, all you're doing is like presenting a technology, like you're doing a presentation about a technology that you know about to someone else. But it's the way, and it overcomplicate things in your head and think that's much too big for me to grasp. And then the imposter syndrome comes in strong, and you second guess absolutely. And I've been starting to, I get it really bad. So you could tell I'm like a bit passionate about it because it really affects me. And I've started listening to the self-help podcast just to try and get over it. And there's this woman, I think her name's Suzanne Falter. And she used to be a copywriter back in the day, like for big advertising firms. And she just kind of goes through, you need to just take a moment, step back and think about exactly what it is. Write it down. What is it you're being asked? Like you can, and decipher then, can you do it? Yes. And that tip, I think, just absolutely saves me anyway from, thinking, oh God, I can't do anything. So,
I completely get that. I feel that my imposter syndrome is terrible as well. I'm constantly thinking someone's going to find me out. I'm not very good at this.
That's it. Yeah, I'm a fraud.
I'm a fraud. Nobody, I can't be good, but I can't have the certifications and I can't have managed to get these jobs if I didn't know anything. But in my head,
the opportunity wouldn't have, you wouldn't have the opportunity in front of you if you weren't qualified to have it.
Very true.
I'm glad. There's a common theme. I think there's a few people that we've spoken to have the same. Honestly, it's a shame. I wish I wouldn't wish it on anybody, but I'm really happy that I'm not alone in that aspect.
Me too.
I think our conversations have shown that we're not alone, without a doubt. Many of the guests on our show, many of the people we talk to in community have it. I'm among them. I think when you and I worked together, Katie, we used to discuss this a lot, that we had this in common. I mean, I'm 50 years old. I'm 51 in July this year. I've been working since 1988, and I feel exactly the same. I've been working 30 whatever years it is. My maths isn't so great, and I'm waiting for people to find me out. I'm like, surely they're going to figure out I'm utterly shit.
You'll be retiring soon, Peter, right?
I know. The day before I retire, they'll probably say, actually, you're not very good.
It is nice to hear. It's nice to hear when people are feeling the same way. And I also do some work as an enterprise advisor for a school and their careers. So an enterprise advisor goes in and works with the careers teams to help them with in industry, or to help them to have the connections that they need to be able to have that, be it work experience, be it people coming in to talk to students, or whatever they really need from somebody who works in industry.
Wow.
And I found when you speak to students as well, it's even in computer science. I've done a couple of classes for a particular school, and they have a classroom full of boys straight off. And then when I speak to the students that I've mentored from the junior women in tech, they've been one or two women in the group, and that really affects them. And I don't think it's not because necessarily that affects them because they don't feel they deserve to be there, but it affects them because they don't feel that they necessarily relate to everybody in the room. And that happens all the way through different areas of diversity as well. And it is, but it's and obviously those areas are very key to people should work to push those forward. It's just that because I'm a woman in tech, it's a better soapbox for me to stand on, because I can relate a little bit. Yeah, so it is. I do find that that boosting the confidence of those people has been such a rewarding thing to do, and as much as I do it for them, I do it for myself too, because I do feel that if I was sat there in that position, I would also want somebody to boost me up and say, do you know what, you're absolutely fantastic, look at all these strengths you've got, and build on them. And I didn't have necessarily that when I was growing up in the same way that I can do that for people now. So if I can be inspiring by just showing them how brilliant they are, then fantastic, because they're going to be the people who are ruling the world eventually. They're going to be the people who are the CIOs and the CISOs of the future, and that's what I try to sort of impart to them, as it were. It's really worthwhile thing to do, though. I'd recommend anybody go out and mentor. It's really, really important and really worthwhile.
This is brilliant. And one thing that I love that you said there, Katie, when you said that you're mentoring these young women in tech, and you said they're all way cleverer than I am, and I say that about people as well. But I think, you know what that means. Get my teeth in. It means that you're a leader. The good leaders, the best leaders, do that. They surround themselves with people that they at least perceive to be smarter than them, and they don't have an ego about that, and they're not fearful of that, because they shouldn't be. They should want that next generation to flourish and do well and take things forward. So that's an amazing attribute for you to have. So more power to you for that. It's absolutely brilliant. Love it. Absolutely love it. One thing I did want to ask, which is something I know you've spoken about, Kat, previously, is bias, and whether it be conscious or unconscious. And an example of that would be the story that you often tell, Kat, of how you've done a technical presentation, and then afterwards people will come up to your male sales colleague and ask him the technical question, who then passes said individual over to you. Have you got any similar experiences, Katie, of where that's happened to you, that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I've definitely had experience of that, and it's and all the way through my career in lots of different ways. I get it even outside of my career. I went to buy a car once before my partner could drive, and instantly the salesman was going over and chatting to my partner. I was like, he can't drive. There's no point. It's my car. Things like that. It was. It's just it's unconscious bias, and I understand. There is the conscious element of it. There is when I way back at the start of my career, there was very much an emphasis on anytime I had a meeting with a vendor, for example, if I was the manager and I brought in a technical presence, they would default to talking to my one of my engineers rather than speaking to me about it. Even though I managed the budget, there would be no. They default to the man, or I would be the person expecting. I've heard a couple of ex-colleagues of mine have said they've walked into rooms and been instantly expected to take the notes because they're a woman, which is just wrong. There's been people I've heard come and be asked, when are you expecting to have your next child? Things like that, things that you just don't
Goodness
ask
me.
that.
That's like a HR violation.
Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. Or the what was it? The element of women living in the kitchen, I've heard of a lot of the time as well. There's been lots of those. The biases have become less and less as I've grown and I've gone into different roles, but they are still definitely there. I've been employed in organisations, although I've had quite senior roles in one organisation and been made redundant, gone into another organisation in a lesser role. I've been offered a lesser role because I was a woman, and I didn't last very long in those roles. at all. Definitely moved out of those quite quickly, because you don't expect it as soon as when you start a role, you don't expect that you've been taken on in a more menial. Menial, that sounds horrible. in a
I know
more
what you mean. Yeah.
administrative role, when actually you've got all these technical skills that could be used, and they aren't actually taking me on for the technical role that I would expect to be. What I'm good at, though, if I go into an organisation and I see bias, I'm getting much better at calling it out straight away. When I was back on my days of starting out, I was a bit nervous of maybe calling out bias, because you think, oh well, then I'm going to have a mark on my me, and I don't want to have that. But I'm much better at calling out bias, especially when it's somebody else. If it's to somebody else, I can almost handle it if it's me, but if it's to someone else, I will.
So
I can't have
what
that.
types of things would you say? How do you kind of approach it? Because I just not sure.
No,
What do you
absolutely,
say if
yeah.
or you see that happening? What would be
So I'm an extremely diplomatic person. So Peter will back me up on that. I'm a very diplomatic person.
Absolutely.
I've got a good way of phrasing things. Yeah, so I can approach something in almost a humorous way to raise it, which then means that it's almost, it's like planting a seed, and people go, oh, actually no, maybe I shouldn't have said that. If I need to call it out directly, I'll go directly to a person and say, look, maybe you shouldn't have said that because that's upset this person, but I'll be quite nice about it, because they might not realise that they're being that there's any bias there. They might not realise what they've said is offensive. They might not realise that they need to sort of filter things that they say, depending on who they're talking to, or the sort of the position that they're in at the time. So I will bring it up directly with the person, but I'll be gentle about it. I'm not an abrupt person, and I'm certainly not a confrontational person at all. In fact, I hate confrontation, absolutely hate it. But I do find that talking to people usually fixes the problem straight out. You usually don't have to take it any further at that point. If it was to get worse, then that's where you need to escalate that and take it further to somebody who's a bit higher. But yeah, generally just a little chat does the job. And people then go, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have said that. I apologise.
Yeah, because sometimes it's you don't know. It's ignorance, isn't it? And then until somebody points out, you're like, oh god, didn't realise that, but I do now. So yeah, I think that's good advice. I think.
Yeah, I think it's quite nice, and I've sort of said that to my mentees as well. They should never feel uncomfortable to be themselves in a workplace environment. If you feel uncomfortable to be yourself, you either need to fix the problem, or find a place that you're actually accepted for who you are. And that's something that I live by now, because I should never change who I am just to fit an organisation. It's not the right way to be.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
So, talking a little bit about security is not an area that I spend time in. I'm all about collaboration, Viva, all of that wonderful stuff. And so, what would you say your biggest challenge has been working with organizations on kind of getting those certifications and auditing? And oh my gosh, there's just a lot there. What would you say is any big challenges that you faced? Any war stories that you want to share?
How long have you got? Really?
Yeah, well.
No, it's organisations, and depending on where the organisation is, the size, and the like, I do find that legacy technology is the biggest problem in security. So you have organisations that are resistant to change, and they're resistant to change because they've been institutionalized, because they've spent an awful long time learning this technology. I completely get it. You've spent all of your life learning a technology that needs to be upgraded, means that you have to learn it all again, and it's scary, and it's difficult, and it's been an awful lot of time and effort gone into it, and it's hard, and it's also costly to the organisation. So I understand all those risk factors, and it's finding a way to explain to those organisations the benefits that upgrading or moving to a new technology stack is going to bring to their organisation, and why that risk that is offset, why the risks why the risks are offset by the benefits that are then brought to the organisation. And that's a skill in itself. I sort of explain that to an organisation. Having a certification behind me to say you have to do this because they're going to tell you off if you don't, or you're going to get a massive fine if you don't, is helpful. Don't get me wrong, that's really helpful. But the type of auditor that I was, I would never be the type of person to say, look, that's ridiculous, that's awful, you can't have that within your organisation. Because it always has to be a collaboration. You have to be able to discuss with a client the reasoning behind why they are using something specific. But it all links to legacy technology and technical debt and the like, and convincing people to move with the times and move forward in that way. But I do enjoy having those discussions with people, because it does highlight an awful lot of benefit that they can bring into their organisation. And you 9 times out of 10 you leave those conversations and say, actually, yeah, that's fantastic. I'll move on, move over to this technology instead of what I was using, or we'll look at a hybrid approach of moving some things over and maybe have a sort of a project to a program of work to move things over slowly. And it's all dependent upon the organisation themselves and their appetite to change, really. But I babbled through that. So. Apologies.
Yeah, I'm just nodding for those listening rather than watching. I'm just nodding along in agreement to everything you just said there, Katie. Absolutely spot on. Could not agree with you more. Everything you just said there, and what you're doing now. Because I know that your journey in security has not necessarily been focused on Microsoft in particular. Has it moved into that more now with you being at Avanade, or are you still more on a broader sort of spectrum of technologies?
So it has moved on to more of a Microsoft focus, because Avanade are sort of part owned by Microsoft. They're part of Microsoft as well. But I have a more of a Microsoft focus, but I do get to dip into lots of different technologies as well, which is quite cool as well. But my trajectory, as it were, I went from my auditing and lots of certification work to working as an information security manager, who was sort of almost farmed out to work on different client projects in a managed services environment. So rather than the typical consulting on a day rate style of consulting, it was very much I was dedicated to specific clients, and I managed the information security for that client's services offered by my company. What has changed now is it's much more consulting that I'll be doing for Avanade, but much more in an advisory focus. So I don't do the doing. I do an awful lot of the, this is the way it should be, and this is how we can make things better, which is great, but with a security focus. So I've there's been projects that I'm working on, very much with a compliance focus. So lots of purview, lots of sensitivity labeling and the like. And in Tune, I've been working on lots and lots of area on DLP and things like that. So lots of different elements of security that I can bring into focus. So I haven't got a specialism as such. I always like to say I don't specialize on on any type of technology. A lot of it will be Microsoft focused, but I know little bits about lots of stuff. Is how I like. I'm very much a generalist. And whether it be good or bad, it seems to be. I like to learn about lots of different things as well, all at the same time. I'm always got millions of things going on at once, which isn't a bad thing. But I do. I want to learn more. I want to continue to expand my my own knowledge in Microsoft specifically. So I'm going to be looking at taking an awful lot more certifications, which, no doubt I'll ask you for your advice on that, Peter, because you're
happy to
the
help.
guy to ask.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you. That's a nice compliment. I still have one certification to do, and the security certifications for Microsoft. There's one left that I still, believe it or not, I haven't got to, which is the SC200, which is the security operations something or other. I forget exactly what security operations analyst. That's what it is. So I've not done that one yet, but I've done all the other ones. I've done the hardest one for me was the 100, which is the cybersecurity architect expert cert, which I really wanted, it took me 3 attempts to get that. Because it was very heavy on the Azure side of things, which is not where my interests or expertise lie at all. So I had to get out of my comfort zone and study up on that side of things, like Azure Arc and Azure this and Azure. There's so. I guess from the opposite side of the picture, the people who work or camped in the Azure infrastructure, they might look at the M365 side of things and think the same. God, there's so much M365 Purview this and Defender that and Entra the other. So I guess it goes both ways. But Azure was very difficult for me to get a grip on.
But, you have your specialisms, don't you? You think, right, okay, there's so much to focus on in M365. You're thinking, well, the Azure side can wait for a little while. I'll go to that.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. Always be learning. Always be learning.
Yeah.
Go on, Kat.
I think everybody has their like interest. Like I feel like I've chosen like the fun stuff, like collaboration, teams. Like for me, that's just bright, colorful, people focused. Like that is absolutely up my street. Whereas if you want to sit me down with some Azure, oh goodness me, that's just But then other people are opposite. They absolutely hate the colorful people stuff, and they're like, just let me sit with my database and crack on. So
something for everyone, isn't there? Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you? Because Microsoft say this as well. Like security landscape's changing constantly. That's like a blurb from one of their like presentations. How do you keep up with the change? Is it the certifications? Is it the blogs? How do you keep up with that ever moving, thing of all the new features coming out? And it's just a lot.
It is a lot it's a lot to take in, and sometimes there's even the amount of rebrand and things like that happen things and keeping on top of what things are called when you're talking to clients, making sure you're using the right terminology can be difficult. But it's got to be a hybrid approach. You've got to read the blogs, watch looking at podcasts and videos, and looking at Ignite, and making sure that attending conferences as well is so important. And now that I can again, I'm going to be doing that, which will be fantastic. I have my CISM and I have my CISP as well, so that's helpful for sort of a grounding of all of the different areas of security. The certifications are great, but there are so many of them that trying to keep track of them will be really difficult, and they change as well as time goes on. So having a mixed approach and working out what you want your focus to be. So if I at the moment I'm looking at going to be looking quite heavily at human-centric security, which touches upon how it touches upon all the things that you're talking about as well, Kat. So you're talking about all of the collaboration and all of the different of all of the fun and colourful stuff, but with a security focus.
Interesting.
So it will be. I'm hoping that's going to be quite an interesting one to sort of delve into, and looking at secure development as well. So secure development is it's one of those things that, although I'm not a developer, I do live with a developer. So I know his instant response is security is just a pain in the neck. I can't do it. It just adds extra complexity to what I'm doing. And I try to say, well, actually, if you don't do that, you could end up having to redo it all because you've got you've had a breach or there's been a vulnerability in the code. So I do. It's interesting to bring a human element into not just sort of the human-centric security as it normally is, but secure development as well, and making sure. I've had wonderful conversations with developers over the years where they've said, I just can't do it. That's extra time it's going to take me, so I'm not adding that into my project plan or something. And that in itself is it becomes complicated. What I do find is if I'm sort of circling back around to how I keep on track with things, the changes in the industry, I've got bookmarks of different sites that I watch every day in case there's a new vulnerability comes out, for example, that I need to be aware of. I've got and anything new and exciting that comes up. I'm on LinkedIn pretty much all of the time, just watching things coming through, because it's one of the best places, and Twitter as well is one of the good places to see sort of new and emerging tech coming through. But yeah, when something new comes in, I have to read about it because it's exciting, isn't it? It's new and shiny.
Completely. There is so much stuff to catch up with, though. I find I do the same. I'll bookmark that. I'll keep the tab open. I'll read it later, and 5 days later, I haven't read it yet. It's so difficult keeping up with everything that's being bombarded at us. So it is a challenge for sure, but it's an exciting challenge. It's a great place to be, definitely in the space that we're in.
My dog is like,
oh, is Bruce here?
He's like jumping up, moaning.
There
He's like, I want to play, and like jumping up on me and stuff. Oh my goodness! So here's my baby.
He's lovely.
Sorry to derail the conversation, but he was just
never. Bruce is
going
part
mad.
of the show.
He's lonely, poor thing. You're in the team now, yeah.
Such attention, look at that.
Some people hate that, so there'll be people watching like that's disgusting. But yes, I like to kiss my dog.
Mine does the same. Apologies if mine was barking outside before. So if you have heard that, I do apologise.
No, that's fine. I mean, I brought mine right up on the thing. What dog do you have?
I have a lab collie Staffy cross, so he's a bit of everything. Wow. He looks like a little Labrador with white paws and a white chest.
Oh,
he's so cute. And he's 9 now, so he's starting to get a flecks of grey on his nose. You know,
he's so getting old. Well, Bruce is 2.5, so he's still like sprightly and come on then, ready to play all the time. So dear me. Anyway, sorry.
Fantastic.
What were we talking about?
I was just going to say, from my perspective, is sort of the opposite to yours, Katie, in a way, and that I have been a long time sort of Microsoft person who's hopped from being an Exchange migration person, which is when you knew me. I was like the Exchange migration guy, and then I went more into the areas where Kat's sort of focused, spent a bit of time in SharePoint and then Teams, and then and found my way into security. So I was being just a Microsoft person who sort of found myself in the security space, and I don't have that broader industry knowledge that you've got. So I'm quite envious of that in a way. So at some point, I'm going to want to pick your brains on that and see if you can help me maybe get more skilled up and maybe do the certifications that some of that you've done outside of Microsoft, because that's definitely an area that I feel that I'm lacking sometimes. I can't have those broader conversations outside of my Microsoft bubble. And you can't think in those terms because customers coming to you wanting to get on that Microsoft journey, they've got their fingers in other pies, and you need to be able to understand that. So it's interesting.
It is. It's good. It's a good way to do it. It's quite the certifications that I've got now. I want to do my CCSP as well. That's my next non-Microsoft route that I want to take. Is definitely my CCSP, and that follows on nicely from my CISP. But it took me a while. It took me 2 tries to get my CISP and 2 tries to get my CISM, because I didn't do one of the boot camps that you could do at the time because it was COVID, so I couldn't. And I did it all self-paced learning, and I'm really rubbish at reading books. I can do videos, and I could do PowerPoint slides. I could do whatever else, but I can't sit and read a book cover to cover when because I need to dip in and out of it. The only advice that I have for anybody is practice questions were the way to go with everything that I've done so far. Definitely practice questions. It's because it sort of teaches you as you're going through. I do find that having the general understanding helps when for migration style work. If there's anything specifically security wise, I have worked on some migrations from AWS through to Azure, which has been interesting. So more from a security standpoint, more overarching. And looking at those, it's quite interesting to see the differences and the differences in terminology as well, the different tools that you've got within that area. So I have seen, and like secure development again is quite an interesting one, because you've got different terminology between Azure and AWS when you're looking at developing new tech, and it's I like the fact that I know a little bit about what's going on underneath, just to be able to articulate that to clients and to my network as well. It's not always a client; it's sometimes people just ask advice.
Yeah, so I suppose Azure Purview, the Azure Purview data map will come into that a fair bit, will it? Is that fair to say? Because that's an area that I've sort of not touched really yet, and it seems very big and scary, and but it's something I do need to get my head around, I think, as I move forward in my own journey. So
it's very pretty. It is very pretty in all of the inputs you get into there, and things that you can look at that you never could before. It's really interesting, and full in-depth deep dive into it would be pretty cool. And how it integrates with Sentinel as well is really cool. Really cool.
Oh, brilliant! You're inspiring me here. Absolutely inspiring me.
It's
Sorry,
so
Kat,
mad that I didn't think about this, but you're going to have to understand how different vendors work, from AWS to Azure. So when you say generalist trying to learn it, you really have to know about so many different things, because even just in the Microsoft world, it's just, there's lots there, oh my goodness. But I have no idea about AWS, so I can imagine it's maybe the same kind of, there's just so much in there. So that's, mad. Well done is what I was saying there.
Absolutely.
Fair play. I don't have any certifications in AWS or anything. It's just things I've picked up from really clever people I've worked with, actually, because they've worked with some fantastic AWS architects as well as Azure architects in my previous organization, and I'm really actually quite lucky now to have joined such a fantastic security advisory team as well that I've joined at Avanade, because they've got such strengths in such a wide range of things. There's some very similar to me, focusing on the specifics for GRC, but you also have people who are working on more IDAM specific areas, and then you've got just people who are very focused on so the security strategy and the like, and more so coming up with new security strategies, or coming up with more CISO focused operational sort of frameworks and the like. So it's nice to have that wide range of skill set that I can pull on, because I can just ingest all of their information as well, which is great, because I get to learn stuff. And then if I can then go into a client and say, actually, there's a gap here, this person would be brilliant for that, and assist in pushing them forward. And it's also, you get that reward for helping your client and helping your colleagues, and also then make it boosts your own confidence, because you're learning things as you go, which is always good.
Yeah. Goodness me. So I guess we've talked a lot about it, as your big old brain and lots in there. How do you de-stress? What's your out of work hobby? How do you get away from all this security and ISO certificates that you've got to do? How do you relax?
I'm definitely a film buff. I do love a good film. So we've got, we have the limitless passes for Odeon. So we tend to go to the cinema quite a bit in my house.
Amazing. We
We love
love a good, we're a bit of film buffs, aren't we, Peter? Would you
We
say?
certainly are, yeah. I mean,
Definitely.
when we first started this show, we originally had a question that we asked every guest. Let's bring it back temporarily for you, Katie. We used to ask
Oh, no.
every guest used to get asked this question: Terminator 1 or Terminator 2?
Oh, that's a tough one.
And
Oh,
we just
do I
go,
have to have a reason behind it as well?
not really.
Not necessarily. Some people have just said which one they like best, just because they like it better.
Yeah, I think Terminator 2 I like better.
Yeah.
Is that no? Is
A
that
lot,
bad?
a lot. No, a lot of people. I think Terminator 2 is winning.
Yeah.
I think I said Terminator 1, but you know what? I did watch Terminator 2 again the other night. I was like, but we watched it on 4K, so we could see like the dummies and stuff, and like
Oh, yeah.
and
It
like the
aged pretty badly.
van, the truck that crashes, but it still looks amazing. That's the thing. It's still awesome. It's like, oh my god, how on earth did they do this back in? When did it come out? The 80s,
Early 90s, I
so
think, maybe
but
that one.
was it early 90s?
Something like
Yeah,
that, yeah.
but it looks amazing still. But I could see it's such good quality now that the films weren't made for that good a quality. So you can see like the dummies. So yeah, moving over slightly to Terminator 2, but still love one. But yeah.
Yeah. What's the last thing you went to see?
Oh, Ant-Man. The latest Ant-Man.
Oh,
What was
cool.
it? Was it good? Do you recommend it?
Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. My other half wasn't as impressed. I think he's very much a comic book person, so he knows all the ins and outs of everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's I enjoyed it. It was good. I don't tend to look too deeply to them. I just, as long as I'm enjoying it, I don't mind.
Bit of fun.
Watching. Yeah, and it's we were talking about so my son is 14, and we've been more often now watching some of the older films. And when he was 11, I think it was 11, my brother was staying with us, and he got him watching Die Hard. I was like,
oh wow,
yeah, and Gremlins, and
Gremlins, yes.
yeah, all the 80s classics, and I came in one day. I was like, he's 11, right? Like, yeah, but they haven't aged. Fine.
Yeah. Also, it's like old action, which isn't as bad as now. I don't think so. It's the ratings.
Die Hard's
are
the best action film ever.
Yeah,
cannot be beaten.
Do you know there's not Ian McKellen. What's his name? Snape. Oh my gosh,
Alan
his name's
Rickman.
just gone. Alan Rickman. I'm like, why is it Ian McKellen? Alan Rickman. That was his first film. Was Die Hard. And he was 40. He did theatre before that, and it was his first big break. It was his first film. And he was 40 years old.
Oh, and he was super cool in it, wasn't he?
He was great. He was made for it. I saw Alan Rickman walking down years ago in New York, walking down the street in Soho, and he had like silver hair, silver trench coat, grey trench coat, and I was like, oh, it's Alan Rickman. Can we ask for a photo? But he was walking like so cool. I was like, nah, I can't. Oh god.
He was a
fangirled over him.
No doubt, wasn't he? He was a damn good-looking man, and what a voice he had as well. Just such a presence, and gone too soon. Really sad. But
sad.
It really was. But some of
the
roles
so many stories of how nice he was as well. Like a really nice, and then he would go and speak up if there was something that was happening on set that he didn't agree with, and if and when the Harry Potter cast, like, he was just like a dad who's just there and looking after them, and things like that. And I love that. I love that about actors who are real gentlemen and really nice blokes. And that's that. Yeah, I think that's the type of actor I'd want to be, like the Keanu Reeves of the world as well.
Oh, he's amazing, isn't he?
Very cool.
Amazing. He's so nice to everybody. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, he just does random acts of kindness, doesn't he? He's so cool. I love the John Wick films so much.
They're good fun. I love it when Keanu Reeves takes a photo. Every time he takes a photo with like young girls or women, he never actually touches them. He's always just, he's got his arms round, but he's got the gap, and he's like, nope, this is
limit.
we're not manhandling anybody. So he's very kind of clued on and stuff like that. So yeah, it's funny.
And that's so important. I mean, I try and do exactly the same, because I don't want to invade anyone's personal space, male or female or otherwise. And you and I had a photo taken the other week, Kat, when we were in person, and that same day I met another very dear friend of mine, Morgan, who I hadn't seen in years, and I was made sure that I didn't invade any space. So
whereas I'm like, well, hey, come on, Peter. Maybe I should take a
and that's
lesson
fine. If you feel
Reeves
comfortable
book.
enough for me to do that, I am happy for you to do so.
Oh, good.
It's always nice to see in person, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
And speaking of that, now that you are sort of ensconced in the community and surrounded by community folk, Katie, I mean, you're working with Zoe, you're working with Kev, and Paul Dredge has just joined Avanade as well. So you can't escape it. Are we going to see more of you in our community? I mean, you've already said you're going to be at events, so it's going to be great to potentially see you in person at conferences. Are you planning to get involved and do some speaking and that sort of thing?
Well, I do hope so. I have submitted some requests requests for speakers, so I'll see if anybody sort of bites on those, and we'll see how they go. Yes, it'll have to be very, very gentle with me, everybody. That's the case, because I'll be very new.
Everybody's friendly. Everybody's so nice with stuff like that. And nobody wants you to fail. Like,
beat me to it.
Everyone's really supportive.
There you go. Exactly that. Exactly that. You're so right. So
we're all
looking forward to it.
In it together.
And I hope at some point maybe we'll have the opportunity to speak together, do a collaboration. Maybe we could talk. That'd be cool. So
I'd love to. That'd be great.
Let's sort that. We'll take that away and see what we can do together to deliver something cool to the community. Amazing. Amazing. Well, conscious of time, everyone's time is valuable, and thank you so much for being so generous for yours today, Katie. It's always great to talk to you, so we appreciate you very, very much. Before we wind up, is there any last things that you'd like to say, and if people want to get in touch with you, how they can reach you potentially?
Yeah, sure. So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm Katie McMillan. I did just put my name down as Katie there, so I'll make sure that that's available for everybody. Just I suppose if anybody has any interest in security, if there's anybody who needs a new mentor as well, it's always a good thing. Anything at all people want to talk about, my ears are open. So yeah, great. And it'd be fantastic to get to know more of the community as well.
Cool.
Amazing. Right, well, we shall wind things up there. As always, please can I ask everyone to like and share and subscribe. The show's doing so well thanks to your support. We recently hit 1,000 subscribers, so thank you so much for that. I'm so sorry I pestered you relentlessly for days on Twitter and LinkedIn, but I appreciate the support. But it's so important to subscribe. Most of the people who watch the show still aren't subscribed, and it does help us grow, does help us to deliver more content for you, those likes, those shares, and comments as well. So talk to us. We always like to hear from you. You can find us on Twitter at CloudCons365. We're also now on LinkedIn as well. No idea what the page is called, but we're not hard to find. YouTube, you're already on YouTube unless you're listening on Spotify and Apple and other podcasts. So if you are listening, you can find us at youtube.com/@CloudConversations. We love your support. We love to hear from you. And if you want to be on the show, give us a shout. Everyone's always welcome. On that note, we shall call it a day and take this one home, and we'll see you in the next time on Cloud Conversations. Thanks, Katie. Thanks, Kat. We'll catch you down the road.
Bye. No worries. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye.